Hello again. We are here 5 minutes late. Sorry. My name is Ceylan Onay. I am the moderator today. We have Kadir, Mustafa Öztürk from Aktif Bank, Tolga Ulutaş from DefineX, and Erkan Kork from Payfix. It's an interesting panel discussion that we're going to have today because on the academic side, we have open banking, fintech, and banks that are in collaboration. But now it's getting faster. And now it's carrying on as a banking as a service. And now we're going to have embedded banking and open banking that's in the pipeline. So how do you really view banking as a service? Can you please elaborate on that, Kadir? Banking as a service, as you know, for a very long time, have been around with API integration, and in about 2021, it's been crowned with a regulation in Turkey. With that, any company today, I'm not just talking about the fintech companies, they acquire customers and they now have a chance to offer banking services in an embedded way. A lot of banks have prepared themselves. Regulation approval is now expected. Maybe in the third quarter, many banks and companies are going to onboard that system and offer these services. What's that going to change in our lives? Up until now, we had banks on one side and other sectors on the other side. So when you wanted to do a banking transaction, you would go to a bank and then you would buy the relevant product or you would do other transactions. Right now, what you do is you go to a mobile app, and embedded in that mobile app, you will be able to do all your banking transactions. In terms of user experience, for users themselves, is a fast service reception point. So people will be able to choose whatever bank they want to get services from. And in terms of choice of bank, what you do in Turkey right now is the following. So you become a customer of a bank and you start using them. Or when you want to get a loan, you go to a bank, you open an account, and then you get a loan from that bank. But the price commission is different and credit policies are different. But now with these new agencies, new players coming in, the processes will be faster. Now we have preparations already on the way. We're waiting for the approval of the regulation. So how do you actually define banking as a service? Well, that's where we see an immersion between technology and banking services, and we're talking about mass prevalence of these kinds of services. When we think of banking, Payfix is a payment agency, and now we offer payment services. But obviously, we know from Aktif Bank, banks themselves are doing payment services themselves and they're entering that market. Now, we no longer see physical boundaries in the world. And you do not offer services from a physical location. Branches are being eliminated, as we know, during the pandemic. Huge banks and their headquarters migrated to homes. And then what happened when we returned back to work, nobody came back to the headquarters. Everybody, maybe, I'm not sure, but everybody looks like they are happy with remote work. So in terms of service range, we wanted to expand that. When we think of competitive finance sectors, both in technology base and in service base, you need to be customer focused. So we expanded our investments and we wanted to offer effective and uninterrupted services that'll satisfy the customers. Tolga, how about you? What do you view in this context? So actually, DefineX, we have been working on that for a long time. So the journey began with APIs. So where does the need emerge? It's very basic, actually. So anything related to money created in real economy. So it's an equivalent to something in the real economy. Money does not move on its own. It's not used on its own. It is actually an equivalent of some sort of transaction in the real economy. No matter what you do, that is the case. So, based on the regulation model, there are huge walls between money and a real sector. So you go to a restaurant and you want to choose something from the fixed menu, soup, salad, or whatever, and then they say, well, here's where you have the soup. For salad, you go to the next shop, the next restaurant. That is where the problem lies. But Service as a Banking says, well, actually, all of that can be done in a one-stop shop. We're at the very, very beginning. It all began with APIs, as you know, but in terms of real industry and real experience of users, they focused on what they had. Like, for example, you had all these different API services, like, you have your shoes, and then you have other objects with you. But then there are so many things. You need to use so many different documents. So they wanted to move on to embedded banking. Then what you wanted to do was to address the needs of the customer. The third step was to become invisible. So we're talking about invisible banking, because what you do is you take a real transaction, you are a part of it, and you need to go and offer it as a package. And this is paved by technology. The biggest challenge in front of us, in my opinion, is that this will require endless integration. So you connect to me, vice versa, that bank is going to connect to me, etc. If you centralize all of that, that slows down innovation. If you centralize too much, then it turns into a bureaucratic burden, and that hampers innovation. If you open it up so much, then it creates risk. So the regulator will strike the right balance, and that's what we see in the rest of the world as well. So you need to have centralized locations, but the number should be several. So actually, you should have several banking as a service locations, otherwise it would be inefficient. So it would be quite a cacophony, it would be quite chaotic if everyone is connected to everywhere. So if that happens, and then if there's just a single point of connection, that could really prevent further innovation. So you need to strike the right balance, and that should be our priority. We want to have a one-stop shop where we want to and also get the soup and a salad in the same restaurant. We don't want to go to the next restaurant for something else. Okay, Kadir, back to you. Aktif Bank, as products and services, what are they? And what kind of regulation should we have in place? Would you like to share your views about that with us? Let's begin with regulation. So regulation begins cautiously, because we're going to try something new. So based on certain authorizations, companies and banks will have options, and then it can develop exponentially from there. At Aktif Bank, what we do is that we have been always involved in banking as a service for a long time. So we have Nikolai Puzzle, and you know that we have ticket sales services in Turkey with UPT. You can have money transfers around the world. And on the back end, we used to have these services with banking, but with new regulations, we will see new players in our lives. And think of them like franchising. We're going to have new franchises. We're going to open those and offer services, just like Tolga said. It's easier said than done. Integration is a whole other story, and you need to do the contracting, you need to do the pricing. When you work with these companies, you need to be able to work with them on a win-win model. And as a bank, you need to really consider the risk and the reporting side of it. So we have designed as well as possible. We have our contracts, and we have really been available to expedite the power that we have. So we help people acquire customers, and with that they offer services. And then when I say franchise, when I say branch, I actually mean fintech or insurtech agencies. And now we have developed our OR, and our services. And right now, I think we have been prepared for everything else. With new regulations, we're going to expand it even further. We're not only offering banking services right now. In a marketplace, we are doing this. The bank is now at the really back end. When we do meetings, we discuss with our affiliates what we can do as a bank. We are not just selling tickets. We are offering banking services. It's not just a transfer. It's a banking service at the end of the day. But the customer feels it on a minimum level, but because in the world that we live in today, companies would like to serve their communities. And there was a missing block, and that was finance. And thankfully, with regulations, that gap will be filled. And for users, that means a lot of options. They will have all these options available to them. And whatever serves them best, they're going to choose it and carry on like that. Hopefully, it's going to prove beneficial for our country. We can export it to the rest of the world, because outside of Turkey, I don't think that we have a similar model, similar to the one that we have in Turkey. Like in Germany, there are players, but Solaris cannot onboard other companies. Now, they do not have banking services. But here, with us, we used to have banking services. Now we're going to have banking as a service. I think it's going to be quite fruitful. It is a huge value creation for the end user. So at Payfix, you are a leading payment agency and you have a wallet service. And how do you view innovation? Thanks a lot. Let me try to put it briefly. So it's been around 2 and 3 years, Payfix wallet. That's sometimes called digital wallet. But, we would like to use Payfix wallet because we don't want to confuse it with something else. It has become quite familiar among people. And this really stems from our customer focus. We're talking about Pay As, and we have a new law, 6413, with payment options and open banking. All of them have become regulated to serve the customers. So we are talking about customers and receiving uninterrupted services on a computer, on a mobile phone. You get your loan, you make payments, and you do all kinds of transfers, and you can send money to the rest of the world. So all of that can be done from a single point. And all of these regulations serve that purpose. And in terms of customer satisfaction focus, we built our IT system with our own means. We have our own HR, hardware, software, development, all of that we build ourselves. And of course, we need to pay a lot of attention to security. We have collaborated with a university, Marmara University, and both on an academic level and knowledge level, we are paying a lot of attention. In order to offer uninterrupted services, we developed a cybersecurity project, and at the end of that project, the software that came out of that project have been embedded to our work. And just like I've mentioned, we are focusing on customer satisfaction. To serve that purpose, we carried out a big data analysis project. Here's what we did. Based on the data of customer movements, we identified the behaviors and options of customers. So we used AI algorithms for that, and the results were very compelling. Thirdly, we have a new project in the pipeline that's going to be carried out in technoparks. So I've just mentioned these payment systems and payment services, but these are all going global, and we are aiming to produce software in order to offer uninterrupted services. So, Tolga, DefineX in the ecosystem has a certain value proposition, I suppose. Where do you see yourself, and what is your value proposition? We offer advisory, but we also have BAS, and we have been working on that for a long time. When we first started to work on this, we elaborated on the theoretical framework. When we discussed with customers, we did not have any regulations in place. And then, around the time the regulation was being developed, we wanted to define what kind of infrastructure we need, what kind of architecture we need for banking, because the technologies were not catching up. Yes, we did have APIs that were being launched, but just like I've said, they were just serving whatever they had, but they were not scenario customized, and there were certain regulatory challenges too. So we set up Maslak. And actually, as the name suggests, is bound to the history of water distribution. It is service distribution. And here is our focus. If we try to integrate with each other all around, that would create chaos. But we should collect services, aggregate them, and then channel them to places where they're needed. So basically, there are finance service providers. The first case would be very, very simple. Obviously, the consumer loans. If you want to apply for a consumer loan, when you go on a digital or on physical level to a certain store, you have several processes. We wanted to simplify that, and we wanted to also integrate that with banks, because banks on their own would need to go through a very complex process of trying to maintain things and integrate. So we began that way and wanted to add building blocks on it in trade banking. So I think that's very, very necessary, and I believe that the number should go up. And it is not actually limited to banking. You can aggregate telecom services as well, and fintech services can be aggregated as well. So what you can do is to maybe collect several services if they want to open up, especially outside of their physical or digital channels. If they want to export their services, this could be aggregated and distributed from a certain location. I think that is the way to go. And obviously, that's a cost-reducing project. So if I connect to all these locations one by one, that's costlier. But if I do it from a single spot, that's less costly. And if you also design new ideas, you have a play pool in front of you. So, for example, you can have the network from the telco, and then you can have another service from the bank, and then you have e-commerce from a different player. And if you curate all of them from a single point, then you can innovate, and you can also reduce the costs. Otherwise, you would have to speak to all of these players in these different industries separately. I think this is an opportunity ahead of us. I guess following up and catching up with EU regulation is not sufficient for us. Some countries approach it from a pragmatic way. Some countries are prudent. Turkey is not a country that should remain prudent in any area. Turkey should be more ambitious. So, actually, it might not be the right way to copy and paste what's happening in the regulations of the EU. We should be a little bit more resilient, and we should leave room for experimentation. Can we maybe accelerate things? Can we try a new model? Can we do something different? We're talking about small work, actually, in the big picture of the economy. We still have opportunities to do controlled experiments. So we have the Maslak platform, and we'll wait and see. I guess all businesses should try that, but actually services should be collected in specialized areas, and they should increase in numbers. So actually, if you just do all of that from a single point, you create bureaucracy. Thank you very much.
Servis bankacılığını hangisi?
Going back to you, service banking or banking as a service, which kind of verticals do you anticipate it to grow, and what kind of products will come to the fore? Well, many banks are classified as individual or corporate SME banking or pensioners banking. These are the general outlines under which we categorize our banks: investment banks, participation banks, for example. And we are now going to take further deep into micro segments, because fintechs will be there to serve their own communities. E-commerce platforms have big communities. They have their own customers, loyal customers, I mean, when they receive services there. And some forums, they have giant communities, and they are they know the services, they know the customers to whom they deliver services very well. And different services will be combined, will be aggregated, and they will be delivered on a single platform. They will be able to sell products there. And in the past, they would sell top-up credits for example, cards, and it's now even broader. And technology for Turkey has not really improved very well. I mean, I don't really want to call it manual, but physical channels are very much in use right now, so they have the chance to expand there as well. And many services, banks have not been thinking about it, and banks in Turkey, they are digitally improved compared to the stakeholders overseas, and they have this super app evolution. Some banks are making a shift towards retail, or some banks, you take a step inside and you see some electric products, you see coffee. It didn't really hold well, but and some of them started to experiment it online, and successful examples have come out already, and we will see more and more popping up. And micro segments, they're going to come to the fore, and it's going to be something where the services that communities wish to receive will be delivered. And you can't really anticipate them from today, because we can create segments only to the extent that we know customers. And this is what they will do as well. The loans and the funds transfers and cards will all be involved, and the banks are doing it in a standard fashion. Maybe commissions will be a thing, and we provide services on Kolay, but the services that we deliver, they will be doing the same. So they will be able to draw money from all ATMs free of charge. Maybe interests will be higher. It's going to be like, I think we're going to choose ourselves a Pilion, the platform for creating fintechs, and we're going to put our services there, and companies with whom we create win-win models. Maybe we're going to aggregate our products, and maybe we will offer our products to different companies. So it's going to take a shape as per the segmentation. What about you, Tolga? Where do you think the growth will come from? From which vertical? Well, the thing is, the most important decision is to do with the customer's advantage. Is it going to be to the customer's benefit, or is it going to be to the bank's benefit? And I think the regulators will decide it depending on the decisions that they will pass. And I will talk about both scenarios. A regulator may come up and say, banks will releasing a long list. Banks will have to open all their services. This is going to be mandatory. It's not going to be optional. These are the distribution points. They have to open the distribution points, and in order to open the way for innovation, different financial services and different startups wishing to develop other giants. They may be giant companies, by the way. They don't have to be startups. So banks will have to open their services to them. So this is going to be beneficial for the customer, because the customer are surrounded by some artificial barriers, well, from migration from one bank to another bank, or transferring money from one bank to other. Their ID information is held at a particular company, so providers aren't really defined there. Who owns the data? We don't really know. It is the data of the bank, but as an individual, I have the data. Why is it really held there? Why can't I really put my data there? You offer for a loan, you apply for a loan at a different bank, and you are reviewed and examined in terms of your credit score, and why am I being held back from the opportunities that that bank could offer me? Why is there a barrier that prevents me from using all these opportunities? Let me answer that, and let me stand by these consumers. If this is the standpoint of regulators, all the services of the banks should be open, and it should be mandatory. So full comparison will be an opportunity provided to customers. They will have the chance to transfer all their data from one bank to another. So this is the first scenario. The second scenario is to do with banks. So banks can hold data in closed pools. ASP, TISP, for example, could be there. I mean, value may not be the focus here, but let's not really hold anyone liable. And if fintechs can survive, we are going to lose new regulations like in the past times, during which the children weren't really given names until a certain age. So this is how things will be defined. So this is the second scenario. And what I'm arguing is that Turkey should be positioned on the more open side. I'm not talking about infinite openness, so much so that it turns into chaos. So everything has its limits, everything has its boundaries, but we need to be more flexible. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. And if a thing, if everything is for the favor of banks, in this case, banking as a service should be focused on the needs of banks. Digital platforms and physical platforms, distribution needs and requirements will be met by us. So this is going to be the banking as a service that we need to shape. Or in the second scenario, we will be focusing on atomic banking services, and they will be taking new shapes, and they will be changed depending on the needs. So it's going to be changing real time depending on the approach at hand. And it is not really something that I'm expert at. And when I think about everything that you mentioned, when I compare it with the UK, I'm a lecturer there. The banking services in Turkey and the services provided by fintechs in Turkey, they are very much comparable to super app, all the banking services and the transactions that I can do here. So you can't really compare them. Turkey is very good at it, and hopefully regulations will also have this kind of a pioneering attitude. And last but not least, I'd like to come back to you. What about your growth strategy? Are you planning to integrate your products with other platforms? Strategically, I checked the latest figures. I don't really want to reveal many of them. Fintech investments in the UK, in Europe, and in the Far East, the fintech investments will jump, and I think this upward trend will continue. And we would like to go beyond Turkey's border. We have established companies, enterprises in Europe. We're about to finalize them, but we are also setting our eyes on Middle East. Turkish Arab Financial Forum was held last week in Dubai. The trade minister was there. The Turkish trade minister was also invited. He couldn't make it, but the investment office of the president was also there. There was great attention. There was great interest in the forum. And in the previous session of the Turkish Arab Forum, it was announced that investments were being expected from Turkey, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, some licenses we have applied for there to open up some companies there. Open banking and banking as a service. We would like to provide financial services from a single stop, from a single platform, and this is something that's very much being encouraged. So you're not really conducting transactions like the way you did in the past. And the central bank has issued certain regulations, and remote identification is possible, authentication is possible, and borders are being eliminated right now, so all of them are being lifted, so companies are not really bound by them. And as a company, it horizontally and vertically, and in terms of product diversity, we are trying to adapt ourselves to trends. Post services, we will deliver post services, and central bank, we are expecting them to issue us an electronic currency license. We would like to issue our rights, and we would like to operate horizontally, vertically, and we would like to implement our growth strategy this manner. Thank you very much. We have last 15 seconds. Well, I think we're very much behind the schedule. I don't think we have many questions. I think we don't have any questions anyway, so thank you very much for your contributions for this great conversation. Thank you.